Welcome to episode 6 of the Physiology 225 podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Jim Davis, and I'm thrilled to have you here as we continue exploring the building blocks of physiology. Today's topic is cellular respiration, a subject that might seem intimidating at first, but don't worry, we'll stick to the basics and make it as approachable as possible. By the end of this episode, you'll see that this topic isn't as scary as it sounds. So the first question we have to ask ourselves is, what is cellular respiration? Cellular respiration is the process by which cells generate energy in the form of ATP by breaking down glucose and other molecules. It's divided into 3 primary stages. Glycolysis, which occurs in the cytoplasm and does not require oxygen. The Krebs cycle, which is also known as the citric acid cycle, and this occurs or takes place in the mitochondrial matrix, which is the fluid inside the mitochondria. And finally, it ends with the electron transport chain. This happens along the inner mitochondrial membrane and is where most of our ATP is produced. These stages work together to efficiently extract energy from glucose, and each has its own unique role. So glycolysis is the starting point for cellular respiration and takes place in the cytoplasm. This process splits one molecule of glucose into 2 molecules of pyruvate, but ultimately it takes 10 different steps for this to occur. We can divide this process into 2 primary phases: the energy investment phase and the energy payoff phase. During the investment phase, the cell uses 2 ATP molecules to initiate glycolysis. During the energy payoff phase, 4 ATP molecules are produced, resulting in a net gain of 2 ATP for each glucose molecule that's broken down. Additionally, 2 NADH molecules are generated, which can be used later in the electron transport chain. So here's the key point. Glycolysis always produces pyruvate. Whether pyruvate proceeds into the linking step and eventually the Krebs cycle, or is converted into lactate depends on the availability of oxygen. If oxygen is present, pyruvate enters the mitochondria where it is converted to acetyl-CoA in a process called the linking step. This step produces 1 NADH and releases carbon dioxide. If oxygen is absent, pyruvate is converted into lactate, which helps reduce acidity in the cell. So then we go to the Krebs cycle. So once acetyl-CoA enters the Krebs cycle, a series of reactions occurs in the mitochondrial matrix. These reactions ultimately produce 2 ATP, and it's 1 ATP per cycle, but remember, we've got 2 pyruvate that were formed from that single molecule of glucose. They generate NADH and FADH2, which carry electrons to the electron transport chain, and it releases carbon dioxide as a byproduct. It's important to note that while the Krebs cycle itself doesn't use oxygen directly, oxygen is necessary to keep the cycle going by preventing lactate formation. Then we have the electron transport chain. This is where the real magic happens. NADH and FADH2 deliver electrons to the electron transport chain along the inner mitochondrial membrane. These electrons power hydrogen pumps, which create a gradient of hydrogen ions. The flow of hydrogen ions back into the mitochondrial matrix through ATP synthase drives the production of ATP. Oxygen is essential here because it acts as the final electron acceptor, and it ultimately combines with hydrogen to form water. The electron transport chain produces the majority of ATP. Approximately 34 ATP can be formed per glucose molecule, but that number varies a bit. So, just to reiterate, oxygen is very important. It is the key to maximizing ATP production. Without it, electrons have nowhere to go. And so, as a result, the electron transport chain would halt, and the cell would have to rely solely on glycolysis for ATP, and ultimately this leads to lactate formation. So let's summarize with our key takeaways. Cellular respiration involves glycolysis, the Krebs cycle, and the electron transport chain. Glycolysis occurs in the cytoplasm and does not require oxygen, and it always produces pyruvate. Glycolysis includes an energy investment phase that costs 2 ATP and an energy payoff phase that produces 4 ATP, ultimately resulting in a net gain of 2 ATP. Oxygen determines whether pyruvate enters the linking step or is converted to lactate. The Krebs cycle and electron transport chain maximize ATP production, with oxygen playing a critical role. So that's it for episode 6. I hope you now feel more confident about the basics of cellular respiration. Remember, it's all about breaking things down into manageable steps. Join me next time for episode 7, where we'll discuss transport mechanisms and how substances move within and between cells. Until then, keep questioning, keep exploring, and stay curious.